A whisper has been arriving in your week, quieter than the noise inside you, and you have been mistaking the softness for absence. Not the loud reply you scripted, not the dramatic intervention you keep auditioning for, not the headline-shaped rescue your nervous system has been bracing for since the first sleepless hour. A breath, a small steady hush passing under the racket, the still small voice the prophets use to recognize. Right now, before this short message ends, allow me to teach you how to hear the kind of voice that does not shout, and how to know that the peace you have been begging for is already at the threshold of your chest. Stay close. The answer arrived quietly. I see you. I have known the inside of your nights for longer than you would believe. The mother across town who has not slept 4 hours in a row since the diagnosis came back 2 seasons ago is not invisible to me. There is a man 2 doors over who let the antidepressants run out on a Tuesday because the shame of needing them outweighed the fear of being without them. I have been beside him every morning he woke up before the alarm. A young woman had her first panic attack at the wheel last spring, and she has never quite trusted her own steering again. An older gentleman stares at his bank statement near midnight and recalculates the same 3 numbers, hoping the math will finally land differently. Held. All of them are held. A father whose teenager has stopped texting back, keeps drafting messages he never sends. The wife of a sick husband measures out the small white pills with hands that have learned to look steady, even when they are not. Someone whose mother is slipping into the long forgetting checks the camera in the kitchen at 3 in the morning, just to see her in the chair, just to know she is still there. A small business owner refreshes the inbox before getting out of bed because the news might already be inside it. The hair on the back of your neck stands up at the chime of a phone now, in a way it did not 5 years ago. Your shoulders live 1 inch higher than they used to. Your jaw has begun aching by midday for reasons no dentist can name. None of this has gone unnoticed by me. I am not impatient with the asking. I am tender about it. A child whose body has been on high alert for a long stretch does not need a louder voice. That child needs a parent whose voice is quieter than the alarm. So I am turning mine down, on purpose, this very minute. So the part of you that has been straining to hear over the sirens can finally rest the muscles around the ears. Quiet is not absence. Quiet is the shape of my nearness when your nervous system has gone hoarse from listening for danger. Breathe with me. 3 slow ones. In through the nose without forcing, out through the mouth without performance. Just 3. Notice that the 3rd exhale is a little longer than the first one, even though you did not instruct it to be. A body that has been trusted with a kind invitation tends to lengthen on its own. The lengthening is not a technique. The lengthening is recognition. Something inside you knows the difference between a demand and an offer, and it is responding to mine the way an animal responds to a familiar hand. The reason your anxiety has not yielded to argument is that anxiety was never asking for argument. Anxiety was asking for company. You have been trying to think your way out of a feeling that was waiting to be held. I'm not coming with a counter thought. I'm coming with a chest you can lean against until the lungs remember they are inside a safe room. That is the only therapy I have ever offered the frightened part of any of my children. The frightened part does not need a sermon. It needs a seat. I have built one for you, low to the ground. The kind of seat a small child climbs into when no one else is watching. Somewhere along the way, you were taught that anxiety meant your faith was not strong enough. Maybe it came from a well-meaning friend at a small group gathering who quoted half a verse and made the other half disappear. Maybe it came from a relative who said, in the voice of someone repeating what they had been told, that a real believer would not need therapy, would not need medication, would not need breathing exercises, would have simply prayed harder and felt better by morning. Maybe it came from a voice on a podcast or a stage who turned a tender invitation into a stick to measure you with. Wherever it came from, that teaching was wrong, and it has been costing you years of nearness with the actual me. That picture of me, the one with the disappointed eyes, the folded arms, the impatient sigh waiting for you to finally get your interior together, was sketched by hands that were never mine. Some of those hands belonged to people who loved you in their fashion, but were repeating a portrait they had received without inspection. Some belonged to systems that needed your shame in order to keep extracting attention or money or compliance. Either origin, the portrait lied. Lean it against the wall for a few minutes while I describe the actual me. The real me has been near the anxious one with more tenderness than near the calm one, not less. Not because calm is suspect, but because anxiety is the sign of a heart that has been carrying more than was ever meant for one set of shoulders. And a father with any sense at all moves closer to the child whose load is heaviest, not further. Your sensitivity is not your defect. Your sensitivity is one of the roots through which I have always reached you. The people who told you to harden up so the worry would shrink were giving you the opposite of what you needed. You did not need to be hardened. You needed to be held. The softness they tried to talk you out of is the very softness through which my voice has been finding you on the worst nights. Anxiety is not the absence of faith. Anxiety is the presence of a nervous system that knows how high the stakes are. A faithful person can have a body that trembles. A faithful person can need medication and still belong to me. A faithful person can sit on the floor of the bathroom at 2 a.m. with a wet face, and that floor is just as holy as any cathedral I have ever been worshipped inside. Where the body is honest about its limit, I have always been most willing to come close. Pretense pushes me back. Honesty draws me near. Your honesty about how tired you are is not a barrier between us. It is the open door. Pause here for a moment. Drop your shoulders half an inch as you read this. Just half. Notice how that small unclench opens a thumb width of space inside the chest you had been gripping without naming. That thumb width is plenty of doorway for me. No renovation of the whole house is required. One softened corner is enough for the hush to find its way through. Bodies receive sooner than minds do. Minds argue. Shoulders simply consent. Lend your shoulders a few extra seconds of confidence before the day reclaims them. A long time ago, I had a man write a letter from inside a small prison cell. He was chained at the wrist to a Roman guard who never left him, day or night. His execution date was not on a calendar yet, but it was getting closer with every season, and he knew it. There were reasons enough for the kind of fear that would have undone most people. He had every external invitation to be anxious. Friends abandoning him. Churches he had planted being harassed. His own body sick more often than well. His hearing failing him in certain ranges. His eyes tired from years of reading by lamplight in cells like this one. Yet the letter that left that prison was not a letter about how to escape fear. It was a letter about how peace had found him exactly where escape was impossible. He addressed it to a small congregation across the sea, a group of believers in a city named Philippi. He loved that little group. They had been generous with him. They had also begun, in the slow way congregations do, to argue among themselves over small things. Some of them were anxious for him in his cell. Some were anxious for themselves in their city. Some were anxious about whether the gospel itself was going to survive the persecutions rolling across that part of the world. He could feel the worry inside their pages. So he wrote back what he had learned inside the place where worry should have won. Picture them receiving it. A small house in Philippi, low ceiling, a few oil lamps, a handful of believers gathered in the cool of an evening. A traveler from the prison community arrived with a scroll. They unrolled it carefully. They read it slowly because reading was not a skill all of them had, and the ones who could read shared the words aloud. Quiet fell over the room. Inside that scroll, in the middle of his other counsel, was one sentence that has been carrying frightened people across every century since. This is what I said through him. Philippians chapter 4, verses 6 and 7. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Sit beside me inside this sentence. Do not race through it. There is more breath inside these words than a quick reading will release. Start with the opening phrase. Read it gently. This is not a command barked from a parade ground. This is an invitation whispered from a cell. The man writing it had every reason to be the most anxious person in his city, and he was speaking with the authority of someone who had found something to lean against that the cell could not take. The Greek word he used carried the sense of a divided heart, a mind pulled in two directions at once. The invitation was not to feel nothing. The invitation was to stop letting the worry split you in half while you tried to live the rest of your day. You can still feel the fear in your chest. You are being asked simply not to let it run the negotiation alone, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving. Notice the word everything. Not in the small things, not in the spiritual things. Everything. The unpaid bill, the diagnosis, the text message that has not been answered, the job that may not survive the quarter, the marriage that has gone quiet at the kitchen table, the teenager who slammed the door. Bring them. Bring them as prayer. Bring them as supplication, which is a long word for the kind of asking that does not have to be polished first. And bring them with thanksgiving, which does not mean pretending the situation is good. It means stitching one quiet thank you into the asking. A thank you for any small mercy you can find, even if the only mercy you can locate in this hour is that you woke up breathing. That stitch of gratitude is what keeps the asking from spiraling into despair. It tethers the request to the long history of my faithfulness. Let your requests be made known to God. The verb here is gentle, not demand, not wrestle out of me, not earn, make known. Speak the request out into the open. Name it. Specify it. Vague prayers leave vague impressions on a tired heart. A request named out loud, even whispered, even in the car on the way home, even mumbled into a pillow at 3 a.m, does something inside you. It moves the worry from a tight fist inside your ribs to a small bowl set on a table between us. From that bowl, I can pick the worry up. From the fist, I cannot. You have been keeping it clenched in there because no one taught you that opening the hand was the actual prayer. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding. Read those words again, slower. Peace that surpasses understanding. Not peace that depends on understanding. Not peace that arrives once you finally figure out what is happening or why. Peace that comes from a different country than your reasoning lives in. And that does not need your reasoning to issue it a visa. Most of you have been waiting to feel peaceful until the situation made sense. That is not the order this verse describes. This verse describes a peace that arrives first. before the sense-making, and stays through the not yet knowing. Your understanding will catch up later, or it may not catch up in this lifetime. Either way, peace does not wait for the catching up. Will guard your hearts and your minds. The word for guard here was a military word in the original tongue. It meant a sentinel posted at the gate of a city, awake all night, watching while the city sleeps. That is the kind of guard my peace is. Not a sedative, not an erasure of the situation. A sentinel posted at the gate of your heart and the gate of your mind, holding the perimeter while you sleep, holding it again while you wake, holding it through the parts of the day. When the news lands wrong, and the body lurches and the breath catches, the peace itself is the sentinel. You do not have to stay up watching. The watching is being done for you. In Christ Jesus. Hear the location of this peace. It is not floating loose somewhere in the cosmos, waiting for you to find the right meditation app. It lives in a person. My son stood in your place, took the full weight of what your nervous system was never built to carry, and inside his name, the peace finds its address. That is why the peace can guard a heart, even when the heart cannot explain what is happening. The peace is not yours to manufacture. It is his to send, and he sends it freely, and it arrives most often through doors that humility opens. As I once spoke to a frightened prophet hiding in a cave on the side of a mountain, I was not in the loud wind that split the rocks. I was not in the earthquake that shook the floor. I was not in the fire that scorched the brush. I was in the still small voice that came after. The man waiting in the cave that day expected the rescue to look like the gale. He braced for spectacle. Spectacle is what his enemies had been using to terrify him. He assumed I would answer in the same vocabulary, just louder and on his side. I did not. I answered in a whisper. The whisper was the answer. Anxiety has always been waiting for the spectacle. Peace has always come through the whisper. Look at the question I asked at the beginning of this message. Why does the silence inside your week feel like my absence when it is actually my presence? Here is the answer. Because no one taught you that the deepest reply heaven sends to a frightened soul does not arrive on the same frequency the panic uses. Panic shouts. My peace whispers. Panic insists on certainty. My peace makes friends with the not knowing. Panic demands a verdict by morning. My peace stands sentinel at the gate of your heart and lets the not yet resolved sit beside you without dismantling you. You have been listening on the wrong band for a long time. The actual broadcast has been steady, gentle, and present every hour. The quiet was the answer. If something here is settling into a tired place inside you, drop one word in the comments. Quiet. Let it sit there as a small flag set in the ground of a soul that finally heard a softer voice. Above this message, you will find 7 brief letters held in the pinned space, one to greet each of your coming 7 mornings, sent into your inbox the moment a small yes opens the door. Take them. Here is something small you can take with you through the days ahead. Whenever anxiety arrives in the chest, and it will because you are a human being with a sensitive nervous system that has been listening for danger across many seasons, pause and put one honest question to yourself before doing anything else. What if I name this to him out loud, with one quiet thank you stitched into the asking? That is the entire practice, not theology, body, voice. Small enough to do in the elevator, in the parked car, in the bathroom at work, at the kitchen sink while the kettle is heating. Name the thing. Stitch the thank you in. Pass the bowl across the table, one layer deeper when there is space for it. Once you have named the request and stitched in the gratitude, resist the impulse to immediately go scanning your circumstances for a visible reply. Let the asking sit between us for a single breath. Most will race to check whether anything has shifted within 30 seconds. And when nothing has shifted, conclude that nothing happened. Something did happen. Your bowl was moved. Your fist was opened. A sentinel was posted. None of that is visible from where you are standing. All of it was set in motion the very moment the request left your mouth. One last movement, gentler than the other two. When you notice that a wave of fear has actually softened a degree or two, because it will eventually, often sooner than expected, resist the urge to take credit for the softening. Whisper, in whichever voice you can manage, a small thank you that nobody else has to hear. Such a tiny thank you trains your nervous system to recognize the sentinel the next occasion. The peace arrives. Recognition matters. Peace returns more readily where it knows it will be welcomed. Try it once, and the result will likely feel like very little. Try it 10 times, and the practice may still feel mostly like an exercise. A nervous system bracing for years does not relax in an afternoon. Around try 30, however, register the shift. Fear will spike a little less sharply, and it will leave a little sooner. Around try 50, you will catch yourself in the middle of a worry and remember the bowl on the table before the worry has had time to occupy the whole room. Around try 100, glance at the inside of you and discover that peace has been guarding the gate of your heart through stretches of your day you did not have to choreograph. Sentinel on duty. You, freed for living. Peace does not erase the situation. The cell did not open the morning that letter went out. The diagnosis you are carrying may or may not change on the timeline you were hoping for. The relationship you are praying for may or may not soften the way your heart is begging it to. Peace is not a fix. Peace is a guard. Peace is what walks beside you through the unfixed thing, so that the unfixed thing does not eat you alive while you wait. That is the whole gift. That is the gift that has been on offer the entire time you were waiting for a different one. For whoever among you has carried an anxiety diagnosis inside a medical chart for years, hear me clearly. Medication is not a verdict against your faith. The chemistry I built into the human body sometimes needs a small repair from outside, the same way a knee sometimes needs a brace and an eye, sometimes needs a lens. The shame you have been carrying about taking that small daily pill is shame I never asked you to feel. Set the shame down. Take the pill. The peace I offer can move through the calm the medication creates as easily as through any other doorway. Your healing is not less spiritual because part of it arrives through a bottle on a shelf. If your body has had its first panic attack and never quite trusted itself since, hear this also. The body did not betray you that hour. The body was telling the truth about a load it had been carrying too long alone. The shaking was honesty, not weakness. I'm not afraid of the shaking. I'm near the shaking one with the same closeness I'm near the calm one, often closer. The breath that returned to you on the other side of that attack was the breath I have been sending across the years since. Gently, faithfully. Every time you walked through a door that used to scare you and noticed the panic did not return at the same volume. That is the sentinel doing its quiet work. Whichever parent of you has a worry that follows a specific child through every hour of every day, hear me also. The asking you have been doing for that child does not return empty, even when the response is slow, even when the child seems unchanged, even when the report card or the doctor visit or the phone call brings news your heart did not want to hear. The bowl you have been passing across the table on behalf of that child has been received every single time. The sentinel I posted at the gate of your child's heart is not a sentinel you can see. Trust the unseen guard. The peace of the parent is one of the channels through which the peace eventually reaches the child. Steady yourself. The young one is being guarded by a watch that does not sleep. If your anxiety is economic, bills you cannot make sense of, a job that may not survive the quarter, an industry that is shifting under your feet faster than you can retrain, hear this too. I am not promising you that the math will fix itself by the weekend. I am promising you that the peace that surpasses understanding is available inside the math that has not yet resolved. You can sit at the same kitchen table in the morning with the same stack of bills and feel a different weight on your shoulders. Not because the bills shrank, but because the one sitting on the other side of the table has finally been allowed to be there. Pass the bowl across. He has been waiting for you to set it down so he can pick it up. If your anxiety is about love, about whether anyone is going to choose you in this lifetime, about a partner who has gone quiet, about a marriage that has begun to feel like roommates politely passing each other in the hallway, hear this last word too. Loneliness is not a verdict on your worth. Loneliness is one of the rooms a human heart sometimes has to walk through. And I have walked through every room in the house with every one of my children. The sentinel of my peace will keep the gate of your heart, while the love story works itself out on a timeline you cannot control. Your worth was never on the table. The weight is real. The verdict on your worth is not what is being waited for. A word also for the one whose anxiety has begun to wake the body before the sun, with the heart already racing before there is anything in the room to race about. Your body has learned a habit of vigilance because it was, at some season, genuinely necessary. The vigilance has outlasted the danger it was built for. I am gentle with that habit. I'm not asking you to scold the body for keeping its old promise. I am asking the body, in a softer voice than the alarm it carries, whether it would consider trusting me to do the watching for one breath, then the next, then the one after. A nervous system retrains slowly, the way a frightened dog learns the new house, patient, repeated, with no sudden movements. That is the kind of retraining I do. And a word for the one whose anxiety has dressed itself up as productivity for so long that you can no longer tell where the gift ends and the wound begins. The driving you have been doing with your life is not all calling. Some of it is fear in good clothes. I see the place inside you where the meeting after the meeting after the meeting is actually a way of outrunning a quiet you have been afraid of. Sit in the quiet for 1 minute. Just one. The quiet will not eat you. The quiet has been one of my oldest dwellings. What you have been outrunning is the very voice that wants to set the load down. Stop running for the length of 3 breaths. The whisper will reach you before the running can resume. Hear the line one more time. The way someone leaves a true sentence on the kitchen counter on their way out the door. The answer arrived quietly. The quiet was the answer. Keep those 2 sentences folded in your pocket through the coming days the way you would keep a small lamp. Through corridors you have been walking unlit. Speak them under your breath at the red light. Tuck them against your ribs the next moment the breath catches in your throat. Tuck them again when the news lands in the shape you did not want. Both stay true whether or not your senses confirm them in the moment. A whisper from heaven does not require your verification. A sentinel posted at your gate does not require your supervision. Both belong to me to keep. Amen. If something here settled in a quiet place inside you, there are 7 free letters held in the pinned space below. 1 to greet each of your next 7 mornings. Dropping into your inbox the second a small yes lifts the latch. Receive them. Forward this video to anyone walking a long, sleepless stretch of their own. Subscribe so the message coming after this one reaches your feed before the next surge of worry can. Peace standing at your gate was never meant to stand alone.